China, the world's most populous nation, is well on the way to establishing itself as the #1 economic power. The Middle Kingdom is seen as a gravitational center, a future motor of global economy. The epitome of China's rise to power is Shanghai, mega city of the future, the embodiment of progress. It is primarily the young Chinese who are drawn here, while its many visitors are raving about the euphoric mood and new spirit of optimism of the Chinese, indeed, of the most exciting city in the world. The world's most flourishing location for businessmen and the creative-minded alike, and for its almost 20 million residents, both thrilling and contradictory at one and the same time. Shanghai is the head of the dragon to spearhead the provinces on China's path to world leadership. In the city on the Huangpu River, entire streets of houses are rapidly disappearing to make way for new skyscrapers. Thousands of years of tradition may seem like an anachronism, but Tai Chi shadowboxing is still an everyday scene in the park. Along with the economic boom, art and culture are also flourishing once again. Many Chinese artists have long since found international recognition and are highly sought after. Lu Kun, for example, China's Galliano. Lu Kun is regarded as China's coolest fashion designer. This fresh young talent just turned 27. Was nominated as Best New Designer by the Shanghai Fashion Federation in 2004. His studio lies in a side street on the 3rd floor of an old watchmaker's. Lu symbolizes Shanghai's rise as a creative center of Chinese fashion.
My philosophy behind my design is mix East and West. That's very common, but I found a way to make them nice, put together, not just Mandarin collar, then plus the Western way cut. So I call that kind of style, it's called Shanghai chic.
Lu combines the style of Western designers with traditional Chinese elements.
So based on my design, you can see there's a Chinese soul inside, not necessarily a Chinese shape. Don't necessarily look like a Chinese, but you can feel it's a Chinese. I want my client or my ladies, when they wear this long coat, they can feel very powerful. They can show people how they're powerful.
Lu's father was a worker, his mother a street sweeper. When he was 4, his parents sent him to painting classes. Later, he attended fashion school. It took some time before he was able to found his own label and employ a small team of staff. But his designs are meanwhile gracing catwalks all over the world. Although Lu is not yet a world star, he is considered one of the hottest inside tips in the business, which has since leaked out to the female stars of the Western world.
The story behind this dress was chosen by the Paris Hilton when she was in Shanghai. Inside is a Western corset, and because that's represent the Shanghainese women are very open-minded and quick learner, and the outside, the sheer, its transparency show the sexy side, and still with the Chinese collar, so it's the East and West. The price for this dress is 2,800 euro.
Shanghai was always in, and always somehow cool, says Lu Kun. Even during the Cultural Revolution, people were always well turned out. The Shanghaians just know how to dress, and now they can even afford it, he explains. He never studied abroad, but developed his style at home in Shanghai. It's not important where you live, the artist says of his success. It's important to know what you want. Today, his name appears in his garments in Western script, making him understood everywhere. But he is already a star in Shanghai, the city of his birth that inspires so many artists. the ancient art of calligraphy, too, has set its place in the modern mega-metropolis. He who commands the skill of penmanship still enjoys great prestige in China. Even the Chinese emperors were practiced in the art. With the four treasures of the study, brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, Chinese calligraphers developed various styles over the centuries. Calligraphy requires discipline, patience, and perseverance. The Chinese maintain that this art molds character and even changes one's aims in life. The renowned calligraphy schools are mainly to be found in Old Shanghai, close to the famous Wu Xin Ting Tea House in the Yuyuan Garden, China's most famed tea house where the Queen of England sipped her tea. Li Shaogong especially enjoys spending time in this quarter. The retired teacher, witness to Shanghai's rapid development over the decades, sometimes feels that change has been too rapid. He obviously appreciates the pleasant aspects of progress, but is glad that the traditional Shanghai with its special charm is not yet completely lost. The hectic pace of everyday life is left behind in the Calligraphy Society. There, he meets kindred spirits who, together, enjoy the pleasure of working with brush and ink. But it is not quite as simple as just putting symbols onto paper. In calligraphy, it is breath that sets the rhythm. One must respect the connection and the pauses between the symbols. Calm and equanimity are essential. Long practice is required, but the gentlemen are determined. If there is a summit, then one must ascend. I look for a nice teacher and would like to compare notes with other calligraphy students so that I too can one day reach the summit. The calligrapher Li Shaogong finds leisure not only in his art, but in the markets of Shanghai. What a contrast to the modern world of glitter. There is always something bizarre to marvel at least for foreign visitors. For example, the Chinese are fond of crickets. In Shanghai alone, there are 20 markets where the insects and the accessories required for their care are for sale. Cricket fighting has been a Chinese passion for more than 2,000 years. The Shanghaians also find the song of the insects fascinating. The cricket is most active in the autumn, and when it is in a good mood, it chirps, which gives its owners much joy and pleasure. The Chinese also take great pleasure in other small scurrying creatures which, as opposed to crickets, often land in the walk. Worms and grubs contain lots of protein and make healthy eating. Contrary to the cliché that the Chinese will eat anything that moves, cats and dogs do not wind up in the cooking pot. In the course of the economic boom and growing prosperity, more and more Shanghaians have taken to keeping house pets, however, which are also sold at these markets. Li Shaogong has a very small apartment with little space for a puppy. He returns to the arena where the cricket fights are about to begin, and the natives can indulge their passion for gambling. The male crickets go at each other. The strongest usually needs only seconds to throw its opponent on its back. Then the battle is over, and some spectators are a few yuan richer. It is the very contrasts of Shanghai that so fascinate the teacher. Now the adventurous senior takes part in a brief tour of almost 650 meters through time and space. What is known as the Bund Sightseeing Tunnel lies beneath the Huangpu River and links Old Shanghai with the new district of Pudong. In a kind of Disney subway, the calligrapher sets out to gather new experiences with 3D animation, lighting, and sound effects. This virtual world is completely different to the art of calligraphy, but Li Shaogong can still relate to such modern forms of expression. It is not as if he views everything new with skepticism. It is just that such rapid development and the changes that he has witnessed in recent years, especially in Pudong, are sometimes almost uncanny. Pudong is a special administrative zone. The futuristic business district on the east side of the Huangpu River, opposite the Bund, the old waterfront on the west side. Until 1990 in Pudong there were only rice paddies, squalid buildings and warehouses. Now this part of Shanghai has evolved into a hyper-modern cityscape. The new model project, the Shanghai Center, with more than 470 luxury apartments, spacious office areas, shops, a theater and a five-star hotel, a gigantic architectural complex consisting of 3 towers, 2 of them already completed. This animation was created by Yu Ting, architect and director of the creation department in Shanghai, and his team, who tendered a bid for the super project to be completed by 2014. The highest skyscraper will soar 632 meters into the heavens, making it the tallest building in the world. Although the architect's office did not ultimately win the bid, Shanghai still offers undreamed-of opportunities for young architects like Yu Ting. He and his assistant are optimistic despite the global financial crisis. They expect that local demand and China's economic growth will continue to rise hand in hand. Thanks to the current recession, his construction materials have become even cheaper. A positive aspect for the building industry, especially in Pudong. Higher, faster, and more dynamic. No nation has taken this so seriously to heart as China. And no city district is more symbolic of the sentiment than Pudong. As architects, Yu Ting and his assistant are at the right place at the right time. Even though competition is great, there is always something to do. Shanghai is undergoing a development that lasted many decades in Europe. But in Shanghai, everything is happening in fast motion, with an incredible amount of energy. The city is hardly recognizable. Before, Shanghai was only situated on the promenade side. Since 1992, Pudong has become the new landmark, attracting tourists and visitors from other cities. The people have almost forgotten the old Shanghai, the old promenade where we are now standing. Shanghai's transformation is happening extremely fast and in extremely large dimensions. Here a new 5-star hotel, there an art center, China's most modern cinema and museums. There seem to be no restrictions. Building is going on everywhere. Swarms of laborers work diligently. The days of bamboo scaffolding for large-scale buildings are over. The most striking thing about Shanghai is that all phases of the city's development, which in Europe were completed in succession, are happening here all at once. High-tech districts, side by side with medieval-looking quarters. In any event, Yu Ting cannot imagine any workplace more exciting than Shanghai. You just need to be good and professional and have ideas. The people of Shanghai are as creative in reconstructing their city as they are inventive and hip when it comes to the preparation and presentation of food. The entire region around Shanghai is a gourmet paradise. In the restaurant Hong Qi Ji, translated the Red Rooster, the staff briskly serve their customers on roller skates. And with an area of 12,000 square meters and a kitchen the size of a basketball field, they need it. The famous dim sum is served in small bamboo baskets. the steamed stuffed pastry, has its origins in Cantonese cuisine and is among the most popular Chinese snacks and appetizers. The cooks lovingly roll the pastry out by hand, which must be gossamer thin and may not tear. Dim sum can be filled with delicious meat pastes, shellfish, or fried vegetables. Countless Shanghai restaurants have focused entirely on this specialty. The folding technique for the tasty and artistic looking noodle dumplings is particularly sophisticated. Dim sum translated means small heart warmers, a light and tasty delicacy. Frank Rasche of Germany is also completely taken with dim sum. He and his family are crazy about it. He met his wife Lucy in Shanghai and decided to live here permanently. Their favorite dim sum is known as xiaolongbao, filled with meat broth or bouillon.
The
Din Tai Fung serves the best xiaolongbao in the city. The pastry can't be beat, and even Felix, our little son of 1.5, adores it. Dim sum is traditionally dipped into a vinegar soy sauce and is savored by gourmets throughout the world. Frank Rasche is part owner of the restaurant chain Element Fresh, with branches in Peking and the region around Shanghai. He plans to enrich Shanghai's gastronomy with his restaurant concept. International cuisine and international flair are in demand. The residents of this mega city open to new eating habits. Thus, his restaurant offers a blend of mainly Western cuisine with Asiatic influences for customers seeking light and healthy fare who are dynamic and open-minded. Only fresh produce is prepared before the eyes of his guests. Frank Rasche continually rallies his team in order to bring something new to the table. It's all about developing culinary trends of the highest quality, but which also have certain pep. And for this, Rasche relies upon the advice of his international chefs, although it is naturally up to the boss to decide what goes on the menu. Now this is really exciting. A salad with aloe. Very good for the skin, and believe it or not, it tastes excellent too. And why doesn't he include any Chinese food on his new menu? I don't think it would work if we tried to cook Chinese food better than the Chinese. And just as in many other countries too, discerning clientele are curious about foreign influences, especially at the dinner table. Something new, exotic. With the younger, urban-oriented generation, the concept with salads, sandwiches, juices, and smoothies really seems to be taking off.
Well, I like this restaurant because they serve good food and fresh juice, and it's good for my health, and I can meet a lot of international friends.
The neighboring city of Suzhou is also profiting from Shanghai's boom. Suzhou is attractive, with good business opportunities. Today, more than 5 million live in the catchment area of Suzhou. Here too, new skyscrapers are sprouting like mushrooms. So it is obvious that Frank Rasche is looking around this city, about 100 kilometers from Shanghai, to establish potential outlets for his Element Fresh chain, which is also classified as a special economic zone and has always been a major trading center. A small town by Chinese standards, but an interesting location for businessmen like Frank Rasche. On this building site, for example, a new business center with luxury hotel is taking shape. And this bodes well for a large international clientele who might be attracted by such a cuisine as that is offered by Element Fresh. Rasche, who worked for a long time as the manager of an American beverage manufacturer, is trusting his instincts. We think this is a highly interesting project for Suzhou and are obviously very excited. But the question with any new project, of course, is how long will it take until people arrive, and whether the mix of foreigners and Chinese we're hoping for will happen here, as it has in Shanghai. Suzhou, the city that emulates Shanghai, yet still has a very distinct charm of its own. The painter Yifang presents the main attraction, countless traditional gardens for which the city is famous. Ever since the 14th century, Suzhou has played a key role in the production of silk. Early prosperity led the affluent citizens to create the glorious gardens and parks, several of which have been declared by the UNESCO as World Cultural Heritage Sites. Particularly magnificent, the Garden of the Humble Civil Servant. The painter Yifang loves this atmosphere. Calligraphic works of art create major decorative elements in the Chinese landscaped gardens, often consisting of lines from the well-known poems of great masters. Every garden contains one or more ornate pavilions. Some are just meeting points, while others serve as tea houses or restaurants. Painting symbols on the lifeless stone reawakens Chinese culture, says Yifang. The theme is the relationship between the garden and daily life, and in daily life the Chinese love to eat. A regional specialty, white shrimp, also known as bee shrimp. Elegant Chinese cuisine sets great store on the visual appearance of food. Here cooking is not just a craft, but predominantly an art form. Many working steps are required before a dish is presented to the guest. The good chef also dispenses with electronic aids, preferring to chop his ingredients by hand. Thus, fish paste from silverfish and dwarf eel is especially smooth and tender and can be formed into fine balls. In such an atmosphere, the serving of food prepared with such artistic devotion has style. Yifang enjoys the light snack while casually conversing with a friend. The sensitive painter is internationally renowned. The ink landscapes and garden drawings of the 47-year-old artist, born in 1962, have garnered great acclaim. Several years ago, 2002, he finally managed to fulfill his childhood dream and created his own garden in Suzhou, at a cost of more than $1 million. Together with some influential friends, he bought 5 mansions in downtown Suzhou and connected their inner courtyards into one extraordinary garden of 500 square meters. 700 tons of limestone and 30 different types of plants have combined into a unique work of art, a fusion of modern and traditional Chinese landscaping, which has brought him great respect. A successful garden, says Yi, is more than just architecture and landscape. It symbolizes culture and reflects the Chinese soul. As far as painting is concerned, Yifang is also a professor at the Suzhou Chinese Painting Association, although he prefers to work in his studio at home. His pictures are coveted collector's items of Chinese and international museums. His creativity is formidable. What inspires him? What drives him? Creating art is hard work, but a work that gives pleasure. I was born in a Chinese garden, and this garden was destroyed at the end of the Cultural Revolution. But I hope to retain my memories through my creativity and my painting. His art helps to keep more than just his own memories alive. It is no coincidence that he is so popular and well respected in Suzhou. China's Garden City has a unique and highly diversified cultural life. This art form requires a very special kind of makeup course. Kun Chu is the original form of Chinese opera, one of the oldest performing arts in the world, which is still practiced here. The actors need a lot of time, sure instincts, and long experience to do the makeup for their performances. Yifang is fascinated by this painting technique and by the perfection which the actors have attained. Thus, he is often a guest at Kun Chu performances. The actors all have almost 10 years of training behind them, and each is limited to only a single role in the opera, for which the makeup style and costume is precisely predetermined. Each character, of course, is also provided with an unmistakable headdress. As the actors must also be able to move quickly for the song and dance routines, the individual elements of the headdress must be carefully secured to their heads. Properly attaching or pinning is a science of its own and requires long practice. Some hand movements are impossible without some help from their colleagues. The opera's actor's key instrument is his costume, and so they are treated with great care. At one time, Kun Chu was an opera for aristocrats only. The actors would be invited to the palaces to perform after dinner for the intellectual stimulus of the elite. This has meanwhile changed, as many renowned Chinese literati have written for this form of musical theater. The longest opera, by the way, lasts for more than 19 hours. Classically, the artists are accompanied by the sound of a bamboo flute. A drum and a pair of drumsticks or mallets provide the rhythm. A full orchestra is not standard. The music should not be too dominant or distracting, but should merely serve to underscore the expression of the actors. Kun Chu can even be enjoyed privately in Yifang's personal garden. A perfect backdrop for an operatic performance. The ensemble performs before a minimalistic stage set. No scenery is specified, making the actors' skill more significant and dynamic. In addition to interpreting highly dramatic libretti, they must also have a command of singing, acting, dance, and acrobatics. An ancient art which the painter gladly supports in his hometown of Suzhou. But Yifang's garden has become a meeting place for more than just opera fans. Garden lovers, celebrities, diplomats, and artists all like to gather here. Be it concert, tea party, fashion show, reading, or discussion, an all-round cultural delight and a coveted address for Suzhou's elite. Suzhou lies at the mouth of the Yangtze and is called the Venice of the East due to its 72 canals and almost 400 bridges. The Imperial Canal is the most well-known. You can rent a boat on many of these waterways, and if you're as lucky as Fang, then you will even find the boatwoman who will sing you a song. The painter enjoys such hours, and he muses, life is like a boat. All he needs, says he, is a good wine, some interesting books, and his family, who happily linger together on this boat. It sounds like contentment.
谢谢你，小兔。
But naturally for Yifang, this is enhanced by the culinary components. Chinese cuisine is a major form of expression of Chinese culture, although there is no uniform cooking tradition. Instead, there are 8 great regional cuisines, the most well-known being Sichuan, Cantonese, and Hunan. Yifeng has reserved a table at a restaurant in Suzhou, offering classic dishes from the great regions of China. When preparing food, the Chinese basically go by the following aspects: color, flavor, spices, consistency, and a harmonious overall picture. Or to put it another way, healthy, fresh, crisp, and tasty. The 5 elements likewise play a major role, and they should always be in balance: wood for sourness, fire for bitterness, earth for sweetness, metal for hot or tangy, and water for salty. The convivial Chinese like to gather around a table to dine. They like being communicative. Traditional dining habits are casual. Lip smacking and slurping are considered to be in good taste. Yifeng has invited some friends. As a good host, he orders more food than his guests could possibly eat. Should nothing be left over, it would mean that Feng ordered too little, for every Chinese an embarrassment that would make him lose face. Feng is also clearly aware that the guests of honor should always be given the best portions. Eating has great social significance in Chinese culture. Back in Shanghai, Shanghai architect Yu Ting and his assistant enter the Urban Planning Exhibition Center. A complete city as architectural model, unique in the world, and the heart of a gigantic exhibition spread across 6 floors of a modern building. It explains the all-embracing modernization of Shanghai. Various colors clearly indicate which buildings are already standing and which skyscrapers have to grow. The Urban Planning Exhibition Center is a must for architects. Even rivers and bridges have been reproduced true to scale. The model gives an impression of the city's face in 2020. This colossal miniature construction is supplemented by an animation film which illustrates another perspective of Shanghai's development. What Shanghai will look like later, I can't say, because this is still only a model. I can only say that when I look at this city, many old things have vanished, many new things have emerged. It's a time of change, very exciting. We'll only know what the city will really look like when the plan has been realized. Only then will we know if it is really beautiful. Whether Shanghai evolves into a beautiful city by 2020 will very much depend on the eye of the beholder. In any event, the Urban Planning Exhibition Center has devoted 600 square meters to give the impression that Shanghai will at least be an extraordinarily modern city. And this is confirmed by one glance at what architects and civil engineers from all over the world have created in recent years. An ever higher towering, mirror-finished skyline with colorful light reflections, which is also what awaits the professional world of the future. And so it is not surprising that in 2010, Shanghai, of all places, plans to lure 70 million visitors and 200 exhibitors to what will be the biggest expo of all time. Yu Ting is looking forward to the World Fair feverishly. For years, the city has been preparing for the event with intensity and is paying more for the economic Olympiad than for the athletic variety. An animation film, together with a model, illustrates the expo area taking shape on both sides of the Huangpu River. The slogan of the Great Trade Fair: Better city, better life. Concepts for lasting municipal development are sought after. The organizers plan to present Shanghai as a global pilot project for the urban life of tomorrow. Some ambitious infrastructural projects are on the agenda by 2010. Yu Ting believes that with the expo, China intends to demonstrate its determination to set the country upon the world's economic peak. Most Shanghaians are proud of the progress, at least the younger generation who see China as the commercial heavyweight of the 21st century, and hopes it will be a worldwide financial center by 2020. No trace of any fears of globalization, no talk of financial crisis, a global metropolis on the fast lane. Yu Ting as well is looking optimistically to the future and points to the World Financial Center. For him, a building with symbolic power. The tower, 492 meters high, with its rectangular opening, will be China's window to the world and stands for Shanghai's self-assurance. For Yu Ting, things have been going well up to now. He is getting his share of contracts. Shanghai has brought him luck. What goals does he still pursue? I think it's an architect's greatest dream to create architecture with the aid of modern technology that is really made by Chinese and not controlled from outside. Up to now, particularly in the design and construction of Pudong, many international colleagues have been involved, which should also continue in the future if Shanghai hopes to be a world leader. The old district is constantly shrinking. The question is, for how long will it remain standing? For it is, after all, as much a part of the identity of Shanghai as the new glittering facades. But the experts say that it is destined to vanish completely. Lu Kun, China's best-known designer, would regret that. He enjoys wandering through the historic Old Town, a true labyrinth of tiny alleyways, edged by two-story wooden houses. Not as chic, perhaps, as Pudong, but more original for all that. An inspiration for Lu Kun, who spends many hours in the markets, watching the people. Through his fashion, Lu Kun hopes to promote his own culture and, more importantly, the city in which he lives, especially the old Shanghai. When he strolls through the market, he is flooded with impulses and enchantment, which are what he needs for his work and his success.
Here is a truly Shanghainese style atmosphere, and from here I will get inspired by the local women, the way they dress, and upgrade the style, then make my fashion, and also from these fresh vegetables, and I can also get many ideas about the color, and even sometimes these strange shape, and also inspired me a lot.
Shanghai has long since evolved into a city for trendsetters, for China and the world. The textile industry is booming here more than anywhere else in the country. Good prerequisites for the fashion sector. There are several fabric and cloth markets offering every conceivable material in every conceivable shade and pattern. Fine linen, silk, cotton, even cashmere for coats and suits. Everything can be found here. A treasure trove for Lu Kun and an inexhaustible resource, enabling him to lend his clothing that certain Chinese touch. The merchants know him well, and likewise know that he is always in search of that certain something remarkable. Shanghai, once again attracting artists as it did in the 1920s, when it was known as the Paris of the East. Shanghai is back on that path, continuing its history, once again exerting the fascination it did in the legendary 20s and 30s. The young couturier is one of China's many talents, and these are his plans for the future.
My dream is, it's very simple. I would like to have time spent in Paris, maybe 2 or 3 months a year, Milan or New York. But at the end of the day, I still have to come back to Shanghai because that's where I come from. That's the inspiration here. So I can't live here too long.
Who knows? Perhaps Lu Kun is destined to become leader of the fashion world in just a few years' time. Foreigners too, like Frank Rasche, couldn't imagine living anywhere else. China's largest and most modern city is currently home to about 18 million, many of them Europeans, Americans, and Asians from other provinces. And this represents great potential for the restaurateur, who combines culinary delicacies from various cultures in his Element Fresh franchise. Innovative dishes with, most importantly, fresh ingredients are very much in demand. It's chic. Rasche believes that restaurants should offer their clientele more than just fine dining, and hopes to establish his chain as hip meeting places with a cool international flavor. And to ensure continued success and expansion, he and his team regularly get together to develop new concepts. The right marketing is also an important factor. Which target group and how best to approach it. Frank Rasche is looking for models, young and dynamic, popular personalities who will convey to the public that it not only tastes good, but is fun too.
Xinxin and fresh.
Xinxin fresh.
Xinxin fresh.
Xinxin fresh.
A new commercial is being shot by an international team, proving yet again that Shanghai is the scene of creativity and commerce. This is the place for those with ideas and the right strategy at the hub of events. Fresh, with big money to be earned.
Fresh.
Hardly any other international city is exerting such a strong attraction. The contrast. Traditional Shanghai is what makes the city so charming, so exciting. Li Xiaogong, retired teacher and calligrapher, is glad that despite all the new developments, the Chinese have not lost sight of the tried and tested. Ancient Chinese medicine is far from out, quite the reverse. Li Xiaogong regularly seeks the advice of his pharmacist. All kinds of surprises are hiding in the many drawers, the sight of which can often be disconcerting to Westerners. But it doesn't bother the Chinese, not even these dried, threatening-looking flying lizards. In any event, Li Xiaogong is positively convinced that there are no undesirable side effects and trusts his pharmacist implicitly. In cases of osteoporosis and cartilage complaints, for instance, Chinese medicine can be really helpful. These maladies can be treated much differently with Chinese medication than by Western medicine. I myself have found that it relieves symptoms and promotes healing. Despite the frantic pace, Shanghai also has its introspective sides. In certain of its parks, for example, where the elderly meet in the mornings to play traditional instruments and sing together. Even if the harmonies are sometimes a bit out of tune. Li Xiaogong loves these hours of leisure, a Shanghai of relaxation, almost from an earlier age. Tea dance afternoons also enjoy great popularity among the older residents. This is how Chu Jingding and his wife, both in their 70s, spend and enjoy their free time. It helps many Chinese seniors to keep fit, Compared to their lives some decades ago, their sunset years have become much richer. Standard dances are very popular. Several times a week, Zhu Jinding and his wife shake a leg at their local tea dance. The elderly couple have been living in this apartment in Old Shanghai for 30 years, and, what is quite unusual, as a large family, 3 generations under one roof. This is the bed of my son and my daughter-in-law, and this is where my granddaughters work. We don't have much space. One of them plays piano after school, and the other does her homework at this table. Afterwards, if she has time, she plays around on the computer. We arrange ourselves. The family sets great store on their children's upbringing and schooling, a top priority for the parents. Finding a cheap apartment in booming Shanghai is not easy, and so living in cramped conditions is something you have to take in stride and just make the best of it, with souvenir photos, for instance. Only the elderly couple have a room of their own. Lots more than just cooking and eating goes on in the kitchen. It is also the scene for some lively discussion. What have the recent years brought to the family? Both parents are employed but still don't earn enough to afford their own apartment. Somehow, they are all still glad that they don't have to live in a modern apartment block on the outskirts of town. Obviously, not everyone is profiting from the economic boom, but some degree of prosperity has filtered down to the simple folk.
Grandfather liked to say that after China opened up, our TV sets got bigger. First it was 14, then 17, and now 32 inches. Now we have a digital TV. And we don't have to walk everywhere anymore. We've got 3 cars. That wasn't possible in the past. What we are experiencing is transformation of China.
Rising prosperity has also resulted in a dramatic increase in Shanghai's traffic, a disadvantage of modern times. A spectacularly successful combination of the old and the new, on the other hand, promises to be the new project in Old Shanghai's Hongkou district. The old slaughterhouse stands in this quarter, which was mainly frequented by writers in the 1920s and 30s. Now it is being turned into a massive design and lifestyle complex, which is simply named after its year of construction, 1933. This huge concept was developed by the Chinese-American businessman Paul Liu. Together with Lily Wang, manager of 1933, he examines the bold concrete arches, soon to be home to new designers' offices, multimedia companies, artists' studios, galleries, bookshops, cult restaurants, and trendy boutiques. The architects have also left enough free space for events and functions. The old slaughterhouse served as a pharmaceutical factory in the 1970s and has stood empty ever since. Declared a historic monument by the City Council in 2005, it has now been elaborately restored and will be soon filled with new life.
The plans are to take this incredible architecture, which is 1933, an old, historically preserved building, and to fill it with an incredible range of concepts which revolve around lifestyle, design, and learning.
Paul Liu worked as a banker for a long time, and thereafter had a great deal of experience with similar projects. He sees the reconstruction of the old slaughterhouse as his greatest challenge. On the Bund, Shanghai's splendid old promenade, Paul Liu also converted the elegant post-Renaissance building 3 on the Bund into a unique location, celebrating the meeting of art and culture. Built in 1916 by an insurance company, the Shanghai Gallery of Art now has its residence in the magnificent 7-story building. The luxurious Evian Spa offers the stressed-out residents of Shanghai the opportunity for refreshing body and mind. Various opulent fashion temples have also installed themselves in 3 on the Bund. The fine, the fabulous, and the fashionable, all under one roof, elite and exclusive. It is also a treasure of high-class gourmet restaurants. The 4 restaurants are among the finest Shanghai has to offer in culinary highlights and stylish atmosphere. Pao Liu and his business partners dine in the extravagant Laris, where the cuisine has only one maxim: quality and freshness. The seafood intoxicates the senses. Pao Liu has set standards with his concepts.
In its broadest sense, it was to bring something incredible to Shanghai, revolving around arts and culture and inspiration in its broadest sense, referencing not anything that had been done in China before, but referencing global cities like New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, and to bring a group of very inspired, very creative people together and to create something within this historically preserved building on the Bund.
Shanghai is constantly breaking new records. A Chinese millionaire once said, "In this city one is not enamored with the people so much as with success." This would appear to be true. Each year, Shanghai is visited by millions of tourists, 4 million from abroad and 100 million from home, all of whom want the same thing: to be fascinated by what is probably the most exciting city in the world. There are no indications that Shanghai's spirit of change and optimism for the future could soon be clouded. Quite the contrary. The short-term goal, to be celebrated as the cosmopolitan city of tomorrow at the World Fair Expo. And the goal thereafter, to actually realize that cosmopolitan city of tomorrow, Shanghai.